Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTGO Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is the Core Set 2019 set review for Red. So just like Red's aggressiveness, let's jump right into it without wasting any kind of time. This is Active Treason, a 3-mana sorcery. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. Always a good card in Draft and Sealed. Never going to see any kind of standard play, but a nice reprint nonetheless to see in a core set. Moving up here, we have Alpine Moon, probably the best modern card in this entire set here. A 1 red mana enchantment. As Alpine Moon enters a battlefield, choose a non-basic land card name. Lands your opponent control with the chosen name. Lose all land abilities, types and abilities, and they gain tap, add 1 mana of any color. That's it. I guess I should say mana pool, but I mean they removed that, so I always want to say mana pool in my brain, so I'm not going to say mana pool, even though I just did 3 times, or 4 times. I don't remember how many times I said mana pool, 6 times. Alpine Moon is a very, very good card for Modern. Not really going to see any kind of play in Draft and Sealed because it is a rare, so you're not going to see it that often. But in Standard, it kind of does nothing, almost nothing. It's close to nothing, basically. But for Modern, though, this is a great card to shut down Tron and any kind of other lands that kind of, you know, is a good like workaround for Blood Moon, stuff like that. Yeah, I like this particular situation a lot for Modern, but for anything else as far as other formats, not really a big fan. Maybe for like Legacy, for like Blood Moon Control or Blood Moon Prison, something like that maybe, for a sideboard card. But that's about it as far as it goes for me. Moving up here, we have Apex of Power, a 9 mana, actually it's 8, 9, 10 mana, a 10 mana sorcery. This is a mythic here. Exile the top 7 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-land cards exiled this way. And if the spell was cast from your hand, add 10 mana of any one color. Or if this spell was cast from your hand. So it basically replaces itself with the mana, and then you get to, you know, cast the top 7 cards. This card is super dumb, super kitchen table friendly. I definitely will see this in a commander deck or a brawl deck, or maybe even a standard deck, like a green red like ramp standard deck. Once you get to 10 mana, this card is just going to be bonkers and basically win you the game. Maybe in like a Boros deck where you can do like approach into approach, that'd be fun too. This card is crazy, super powerful. Love it a lot. But in Draft and Sealed, it's a mythic, so you're never going to see it, so don't even worry about it for that format. If you do get it, though, in Draft and Sealed, just pass it up because it's not useful in that particular format. Moving up here, we have Banefire. This is an oldie but a goodie, an X and red sorcery. It's a rare here. Banefire deals X damage to any target, and if X is 5 or more, this spell can be countered and the damage can't be prevented. So this is a card that might see some play in Standard. Hasn't been in Standard in a while, rather. Very, very good card for Draft and Sealed. It's a very, very good just removal spell for a red. And a great way to end up destroy an opponent, because it says any target, so you can target an opponent's creature, planeswalker, or their face. So paying 6 mana to do 5 points to their face that can't be countered or prevented, that's really, really good. Banefire, high pick for me if you get it into as your rare in Draft and Sealed. Moving up here, we have Boggart Brute. This is another card we haven't seen in a while, I believe. This is a 3 mana 3/2 with Menace. Super simple, straightforward, just a great beater for you in Draft and Sealed. I'm not going to see any kind of standard play outside of that, though. It is a Goblin Warrior, so you might see fringe like testing and brewing around, but besides that, it's just a decent card to get into your Goblin deck in Draft and Sealed at the common slot. Moving up here, we have Catalyst Elemental. This is a 3 mana 2/2. Sacrifice Catalyst Elemental, add 2 red mana. So this is a card that I feel like might be in the Goblin Godforce gift deck right now. Like there's a Goblin Godforce gift deck in Standard at the moment. This is a card that might make its way into that. It is 3 mana though, so it is a little more expensive than the other one that just sacks itself for 1 and adds 1 mana. So this is a card that might be in that deck. It may not be. It's really dependent on how the actual deck operates or wants to operate. But adding 2 mana at any time with a 2/2 body on it is not bad. And in Draft and Seal, this is a common, so you're going to see this quite a lot as well. So I think this card is going to be a good pick for you if you're in red trying to ramp up to something a little bit bigger in green or in black or whatever. Moving up here, we have Crash Through, a decent card from the Amonkhet block. A red mana sorcery. Creatures you control gain trample until end of turn. Draw a card. Super simple, straightforward. If you're up against, or if you're playing a red-green, or something with a big creature on your side of the field, giving your creature trample is usually the way that you're going to win the game. Or, just get in some nice damage against your opponent and also kind of replace itself by drawing a card thanks to Crash Through's secondary ability. I like this card a lot for Draft and Sealed. Probably won't see any kind of play though in Standard. It's in Standard right now and isn't seeing that much play except for like random like Izzet builds around the place with like wizards and stuff like that, or Izzards as people said whenever I mispronounced it in the blue video. Next up here for us, we have Dark Dweller Oracle, another rare for us, a 2 mana 2/2. You can pay 1, sacrifice a creature, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Interesting ability. Not really sure where it's going to fit as far as draft and sealed, probably nowhere. But in standard, this might be in a weird goblin deck that like can get out a bunch of creatures really quickly. There is a sack outlet here, so not too excited about this ability in standard at the moment. I got to see some more tech around this card to make it more useful. This card might be good though in modern, depending on how you want to use it. Sacrificing a creature usually isn't a bad thing, especially when you're like, you're looking at the top card of your library like this card is doing. So this might be seeing a lot of brew around play. I'm not entirely sure, but I do think this card, as a 2-mana 2/2 in like, draft and sealed, you might want to pass it over because there are definitely better uncommons and even commons for that power slot. Moving up here, we have Demanding Dragon. This is the card that might replace Glorybringer when rotation happens. A 5-mana 5/5 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to target opponent unless that player sacrifices a creature. So very, very good card. Wish it had haste. That's the one thing that I wish this card had at the rare slot. If it had haste, this card would be busted and so powerful. But it does do 5 damage to opponent's face, or they sack a creature. But if they have like, a bunch of tokens on the battlefield, they're just going to sack a token. So not as impactful as you'd want it to be. So I think this card though, as a 5-mana 5/5 flyer, as your bomb in red though for draft and sealed, is amazing. And again, might see some standard play. Moving up here, we have Dismissive Pyromancer, a 2-mana 2/2. You can pay 1, tap it, discard a card, draw a card. So basically cycling here, or kind of shifting through your land, or cards off the top. Pay 3, tap it, sacrifice Dismissive Pyromancer. It deals 4 damage to target creature. I like this card a lot because it has 2 different abilities here. So it has the ability to, give you card advantage, to kind of sift through your deck and make sure you can get cards that you want to get into more quickly, or it has the ability to kind of just shoot down a creature on your side of the field. So I think both of those things are very, very good. There's no kind of like specifics on what kind of creature it goes to as far as the 4 damage. Sometimes the 4 damage is to only creatures with flying or without flying or something like that. So I like how it's just 4 to a particular creature. That's very, very good. And just a 2-mana 2/2 is fine as well. So being able to play this on turn 2 and then on turn 3 upkeep, be able to discard a card, draw a card, or just be able to play your 3rd mana and deal 4 damage to a creature that you don't like on your opponent's side of the field. That's pretty nice. Moving up here, we have Double Cast, a 2-mana sorcery. When you cast the next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. I mean, it's okay. It's not terrible. There's definitely a place for this somewhere in maybe standard brewing, like random brewing. As far as draft and sealed goes, this is kind of a bad card to get into because you really don't have that many follow-up abilities or spells most of the time in a draft and sealed deck. Most of the time you're going to want to get into at least 15 to 16 creatures, and then the rest of your deck is just like, random artifacts, some spells, maybe an enchantment, something like that. So I'm not in love with this card for sure for that particular situation, but I do like it maybe in a brew around like Brawl, EDH, and maybe a like super casual standard deck. So if you get into this in your draft and sealed pool, you might want to pass it up unless you just have a ton of instant sorcery spells. Moving up here, we have Dragon Egg. Haven't seen this in a while. A 3-mana 0/2 Dragon Egg Defender. When Dragon Egg dies, create a 2/2 red dragon creature token with flying, and you can pay red. This creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So a great blocker in the early game and a great attacker in the mid to late game because it's a 2/2 that has fire breathing, which is very, very good in draft and sealed. So this is kind of a high pick for me as far as a card that I want to get into in draft and sealed. I'm not going to see kind of standard play because it's a little too slow for that, but for draft and sealed, this is a great blocker and a great way to end a match because it can be turned into a flyer, which is very, very, very good. Of course, that fire breathing makes it just ridiculous. Moving up here, we have Electrify, a great card from the Omnicat block here. 4-mana instant. Electrify deals 4 damage to target creature. Just a good removal spell in red. Wish it dealt 4 damage to any target for 4 mana, but 4 damage to a target creature at common slot, that's perfectly fine. I'll take that all day long in draft and sealed. So a mid to high pick for me for removal if I'm in red. Moving up here, we have Fiery Finish, a 6-mana sorcery, deals 7 damage to target creatures. So very similar to Electrify here, but Fiery Finish is doing a bit more damage for 6 mana. I'm not as excited about this card as I am for Electrify. I think this card isn't as good because it's only target creature and you're paying 6 mana for it. It is definitely a removal spell for sure, but it can just kind of do nothing for a long time because it can sit in your hand, and it can't be a finisher, which is the reason that I feel like, we want the 6 mana to be a finisher. To any target here would have been amazing, but 7 damage to target creature, still a good removal spell, but just more expensive than Electrify, and I feel like Electrify will most of the time just get the job done. Moving up here, we have Fire Elemental, just an oldie but goodie, a 5-mana 5/4 vanilla creature. Just a good card on the top end in your red deck here for Draft and Seal. Not going to see standard play though, of course. But a Draft and Seal deck needs a top end attacker, and I think Fire Elemental can always fill that slot really nicely. Moving up here, we have Goblin Instigator, a 2-mana 1/1. When Goblin Instigator enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red Goblin creature token. You want to get into as many of these as possible in your red deck. It's a very, very fast card, making your board state go incredibly wide, making a lot of 1/1s, being able to attack out really quickly, as well as just have a lot of good blockers when your opponent's trying to attack into you. So making 2 power across 2 creatures, very, very good. And yeah, this is probably going to see play in a Goblin standard deck somewhere too, because making this a 1-mana 1/1 that makes another 1/1 with the War Chief. I think it's in standard. I think it's called the War Chief that's in standard. Very, very good card overall. I really like this for standard. Might see some brawl play as well. And yeah, we'll see a lot of draft and sealed play at the common slot for sure for red. Moving up here, we have Goblin Motivator, another goblin that's very, very good here. A red mana 1/1. You can tap it, target creature gains haste until end of turn. Super good card in draft and sealed. All of these cards, whether it's like tap, target creature gets haste, are always really good in tempo-based strategies in draft and sealed. So I would pick this really highly for that particular format. As far as this card being good in standard, it's a little weak. It can be good, but I think it's a little too weak for what standard's kind of asking for at the moment. I think there are just a bunch of good goblins now, thanks to Core Set 2019. So this is a card that probably won't make it into a standard deck, but for brawl and for like draft and seal, this card will just be played all day long. Moving up here, we have another goblin, Goblin Trashmaster. He's a Trashmaster. I love his little beard thing going on here. 4-mana 3/3. Other goblins you control get +1/+1. Sacrifice a goblin, destroy target artifact. I love this card because it gives a lot of flexibility in the standard format, pumping your goblins while also being able to kind of have some good utility against other cards on your opponent's side of the field. Very, very good for that. Basically being able to kind of combat a Heart of Kieran, a Godfrey's Gift strategy, a created artifact creature from Karn, anything like that that's an artifact, Goblin Trashmaster can deal with it just by sacking a goblin. And that's really not that big of a deal when you think about all the tokens you can create with a lot of the goblin cards. If you get into this in Draft and Seal, it's a really good card, but it is a Lord, so you want to be kind of careful. If this is a second pack card and you're in red, definitely go for it. If this is your first pack rare, you may want to pick it because it is a good card, but you want, building a deck around, or trying to build a deck around from card 1, like goblins, going into goblins and draft and seal, can be kind of risky. So definitely look at this card as like, if I want to get into it, take the risk for the first pick as a first pickable card, and then kind of look from there and say, okay, is anyone else in the draft pool kind of drafting into goblins? If not, definitely go for goblins because Trashmaster is a huge bomb in that format. Moving right along here, we have Gutter Snipe, another goblin. So many of them. 3-mana 2/2 Goblin Shaman. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. There are several of these cards now in standard, and I feel like there's going to be a really nice like blue-red burn deck right now in standard, or just maybe a mono-red burn deck with lots of just burn spells and cards like this that do extra damage whenever you cast a burn spell. So like this card a lot in draft and sealed, especially when you get into a lot of spells. Just a very, very powerful. A 3-mana 2/2 is not terrible, but not great. So it can block a little bit, but you really don't want to be attacking or blocking this card. You just want it on the battlefield, so whenever you cast a burn spell, or cast a removal spell, or cast any instant or sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to an opponent, pinging them down until they're basically dead, or they have an answer for Gutter Snipe. So like this card a lot for draft and seal, and I love this card for a goblin deck or maybe a burn deck in standard. Next up, we have the Havoc Devils, a 4-mana 4/3 devil with trample. That's it. Wish it had haste. It feels like it would have haste based on the art here, but a very, very good card regardless. A very high pick for me in draft and sealed. Getting a 4/3 trampler is fine. In standard though, this card isn't going to see any kind of play, but love the art regardless, and love the flavor text here. For devils, burning things is the highest form of comedy, diversion, and artistic expression. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, Pyro. Great card for draft and sealed. Moving up here, we have Hostile Minotaur, a 4-mana 3/3 with haste. This is a card you might take all day long in draft and sealed, especially at the common slot, because the 3/3 with haste for 4 is not bad at all. The haste is the point, or the piece of this card that makes it kind of pushed over the edge here for me. A 3/3 is always fine in draft and sealed, but a 3/3 haster for 4 is pretty good at the common slot. So this might be a good card to put into a red deck in draft and sealed. Again, not going to see any kind of standard play unless you want to build like a weird Minotaur deck. Moving up here, we have Inferno Hellion, a 4-mana 7/3 with trample. At the beginning of each instep, if Inferno Hellion attacked or blocked this turn, its owner shovels it into their library. This card is super interesting. If you get into a lot of them in draft and sealed, this might be a great way to like just destroy an opponent's face, because it's just kind of getting in over and over again, unless an opponent kills it or blocks it or something like that. But getting it for 7 points of damage is no joke. I love this card at the uncommon slot. Might see play in a weird like fling style deck in standard, but besides that, this card is just like super dumb in draft and sealed. Really impactful. Moving on here, we have Lathless Dragon Queen. I think that's how you pronounce it. A 6-mana 6/6 legendary creature dragon flying. Whenever another non-token dragon enters a battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. You can pay 2 dragons you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. A board-wide flamethrower or fire-breathing ability. Flamethrower, fire-breathing ability here. Dragon Queen is ridiculous. Definitely going to be a brawl and commander for a long time, and just a huge bomb in like limited if you get into draft and sealed. If this is a card you get into your opening pack, just wow, just try and get into red if you can, I guess. This card is super good. As far as this being a good card in standard, it's super good if you want to build into a dragon list. However, there are just not that many dragons at the moment, I feel like. There are a ton of really powerful dragons, but they're all kind of at the, at the like 5-mana slot, 6-mana slot. So I think this might be pretty good with the Dragon Egg since it is in standard now thanks to the Core Set 2019. So I think this card might see some play in standard. It is a huge bomb at 6-mana, 6/6 flying, and giving, board-wide fire breathing. That's really cool. But yeah, we'll kind of see on that. But being able to make a bunch of 5/5s once you cast another dragon, that's just dumb. That's super, super dumb. Moving up here for us, we have Lava Axe, an oldie but a goodie, a 4-mana sorcery. Deals 5 damage to target player or planeswalker. Very, very good, straightforward. Good what is happening? Good finisher. There we go. That's the word I'm thinking for. It's a very, very good finisher for your red deck if your opponent is only on 5 life or has less than 5 life against their aggro deck. So very, very good for that particular situation. Besides that, though, might not see any kind of play outside of draft and sealed. We'll probably not see any kind of play in standard, though. Moving right along here, we have Lighining Mare, a 2-mana 3/1 elemental horse. This spell can't be countered, which is interesting. And Lighining Mare can't be blocked by blue creatures. Also interesting. You can pay 2, and Lighining Mare gets +1/+0 until end of turn, so fire breathing on this creature as well. This card is basically just meant to go up against a control deck all day long. Very, very good sideboard tech and standard, I feel like. And very, very good tech just in draft and sealed, being a great attacker if you're in red. Now, that is double red, so it is something you want to be careful about getting into. But if you do get into red, this card definitely rewards you for that. Moving on here, we have Lightning Strike, a 2-mana instant. Lightning Strike deals 3 damage to any target. Usually used to say creature or player. Very, very good card here for us. Nice to see it as a reprint here in this set. Hopefully this kind of goes forward again, just like how the counter spells were in blue. Hopefully like the core sets from now on just kind of hold all of these kind of like basic cards in the core set. That way they're not kind of like filling up any kind of design space in other sets. Lightning Strike is a very good card overall though. 2-mana instant, and just dealing 3 to an opponent or a creature or a planeswalker or whatever, any target. Next up for us here, we have Onak or Ogre. I think it's is it Onak? Onak? I don't know. Onak Ogre. 3-mana 4/2 vanilla. Just super straightforward, super simple, but very, very powerful for 3 mana. So I think this card might see a lot of play in draft and sealed. Again, won't see any kind of play in standard though. Moving up here, we have Sarkhan Fireblood. This is the first planeswalker in red for us. A 3-mana 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker Sarkhan. +1, you may discard a card if you do draw a card, so a nice cycling ability here. +1, add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast dragon spells. So this is very, very specific to basically the Core Set 2019 kind of a theme here. -7, create 4 5/5 red dragon creature tokens with flying. So it only takes 4 turns to get there, so it's probably never going to happen. If you get into this in your draft and sealed pool, all the dragons are like, uncommon or rare, so it's going to be one of those situations where this card might not just do anything except just draw you cards. And that's okay, I guess. If you get it to emblem, that's awesome in draft and sealed. This is a card basically meant for brawl, commander, and standard. And even then, it's probably just gonna be a kitchen table card. It does make the ability to like cast dragons a little bit sooner on turn 4, that kind of thing, thanks to its other +1 ability here. If you're building a dragon deck, so this does make the dragon deck a little bit more viable in standard. But for draft and sealed, this card is just kind of really difficult to get off the ground, literally. Moving on here, we have Sarkhan's Unsealing, a 4-mana enchantment rare. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, Sarkhan's Unsealing, it deals 4 damage to any target. That is crazy powerful. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 7 or greater, Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. That's just crazy here. I really like this card a lot for like the draft and sealed environment as your rare. If you get into a lot of good bombs, you can kind of build around it like that. But I'm also sure this will see some play in standard as a weird brew around card to be able to just, burn your opponent to a crisp by just playing valued creatures turn over turn. So very, very interesting for us. The power 4 here does mean that, playing follow-up spells over and over again means that you're going to hit something, maybe two times in a row to any target. So 8 damage to an opponent's face or 8 damage to a creature or an opponent's planeswalker. This card is super powerful in that particular situation, and just a really good tabletop commander card or brawl card. Moving up here, we have Shock, just an old goodie, a 1 red mana instant. Shock deals 2 damage to any target. Was going to be rotating in the Kaladesh block here, but is actually staying with the Kaladesh art into this core set here. Like Shock a lot. Glad it's still here, and glad it's not taking up any kind of design space in other formats moving forward. Up here we have a Siegebreaker Giant, an uncommon 5 mana 6/3 with Trample. You can pay for a target creature can't block this turn. This is basically a card to end a match if you're up against an opponent that just has 1 creature on the battlefield or just a couple of creatures on the battlefield. A great way to end a match like that. If you have a lot of mana to dump into it, dump 8 mana, make 2 creatures not be able to block. So great for that particular situation as well. Like this card a ton in Draft and Sealed. Not going to see any kind of standard play because it's a little too slow, but because of how it is kind of operating in the Draft and Sealed environment, this card is amazing. Moving up here, we have Smelt, a card we haven't seen in a while. A 1 red mana instant, destroy target artifact. Super simple, straightforward. So this is a card if you get into a lot of artifact decks, or the blue-white artifact deck. I think that's one of the archetypes in Draft right now. Smelt is a card that's going to help to hopefully deal with that, so throw this into your sideboard, and if you're up against that matchup, just kind of, sideboard it in after game 2 and see if you can hopefully draw into it. For standard, though, we have a Braid right now, and this card won't see that much play besides that. Moving up here, we have Sparkongue Dragon, a 5 mana 3/3 common. So there is a common dragon here with flying. When Sparkongue Dragon enters the battlefield, you may pay 3. When you do, it deals 3 damage to any target. So you can pay 5 or you can pay 8 mana for this card. Just a 5 mana 3/3 flyer is already pretty good. You don't have to pay this basic kicker cost right here for the extra 3 damage. I don't think that's really worth it for this card. But for Draft and Sealed, though, a 5 mana 3/3 flyer is just gravy. Next up here, we have a Spitflame. This is a 3 mana instant rare. Spitflame deals 4 damage to target creature. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay red. If you do, return Spitflame from your graveyard to your hand. This is a card that might make dragons legit in standard right now. As far as a card in Draft and Sealed, it's a rare, so you won't see that many of them. But if you do get into this card and a dragon and you're in red, this card might be just amazing, like a huge bomb for you, bomb removal spell. But yeah, for standard and brawl and commander, this card is super fun. Might push a dragon deck over the edge into a standard deck for sure. Next up here, we have Sure Strike, a card we always love in a Draft and Sealed environment. A 2 mana instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike into a turn. Great way to trade up or against an opponent's creature, as well as just do some extra damage against an opponent's life points if they're completely open. So this is a great way to end a match, or a great way to just kill a creature an opponent doesn't, or we want to kill on our opponent's side of the field. There we go. Stuttering a lot here now. Moving up here, we have Tectonic Rift, a 4 mana sorcery. Destroy target land. Creatures without flying can't block this turn. Very specific card. Probably won't see much Draft and Sealed play. Probably the last pickable card if you really want to use it. Not that fun in Draft and Sealed. Won't be used in standard. Just kind of to me, I don't really think it's that great. Creatures without flying can't block this turn is interesting, so I think it's probably something that it could work rather well. But, again, that's like a very specific ability here. So there are more creatures without flying than there are with flying most of the time. So this is a card that could be a really good card in game 2, just after seeing your opponent's deck kind of operate. But I think this card is just kind of a low pick for me in Draft and Sealed. Moving up here, we have Thud, a 1 red mana sorcerer. As initial cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Thud deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. This is just a, our turn fling for 1 less mana, so that's nice. In Draft and Sealed, this will probably be pretty good. In Standard, won't see any kind of play because it is a sorcery speed spell, so probably won't see much play at all. It's not that impactful, and not as powerful as Fling with that instant speed ability here, but still a very, very good card for Draft and Sealed. Love the art also on this card. Moving up here, we have Tormenting Voice, an oldie but a goodie, a 2 mana sorcery. As initial cost to cast a spell, discard a card, draw 2 cards, basically shifting 2 cards from your hand and drawing 2 cards. Very, very good card in Draft and Sealed because, of course, you have 40 cards in your deck, and being able to shift through 2 more is very, very good. Won't see any kind of play in Standard, but still a good card for that particular format in Draft and Sealed. Moving up here, we have Trumpet Blast, another card that's good in Draft and Sealed if you're up against, or if you are an aggressive strategy. 3 mana instant, attacking creatures get +2/+0 until end of turn. So being able to, pump your entire board state board wide and then just swing out for an alpha strike, very, very good card for that particular situation. Not a lot of board wipe stuff against an opponent right now in other colors, because we just went through white and black. So I think Trumpet Blast might be pretty good in this particular format for Draft and Sealed. Won't see any kind of standard play, of course, because it's just a bit awkward for that. Next up here, we have is it Vaishino Pyromancer, is how you pronounce it correctly. 2 mana, 2/1. Vaishino Wizard, or Viashino Wizard. I guess it's Viashino. I guess that's how you pronounce it. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to target player or planeswalker. So it is a wizard, so I might see some wizard play in standard, so that's interesting for sure. As far as a card in like Draft and Seal, it does do damage to planeswalkers and players, so interesting there, but it is just a 2 mana 2/1, so it might not be as impactful as you want it to be. Regardless, I feel like this card might see some play in a weird wizard stack in standard. Next up here we have Volcanic Dragon. Haven't seen this in a while either. 5 mana 4/4 dragon, flying with haste. Very simple, very straightforward, and a card you're going to always pick into. If you're in red, you need a flying bomb, and this is basically like checking all the boxes. This is an amazing card for Draft and Sealed, and probably won't see any kind of play in standard, but still an amazing card for Draft and Sealed. Next up here we have Volley Veteran. I believe this is the last card here. Let me look clear. Yeah, this is the last card out of all the red here. 4 mana 4/2 Goblin Warrior. When Volley Veteran enters a battlefield, it deals damage to target creature and opponent controls equal to the number of goblins you control. This is a card that might be seeing a lot of play in Draft and Sealed if you get into a lot of goblins, but I feel like this card might see even more play in standard or brawl, where like the implication here is a lot more, I guess, wide-reaching, because there's just more goblins you can put into a deck in this kind of formats and archetypes. Regardless, a 4 mana 4/2 is nothing to sneeze at. Being able to trade up or deal a lot of damage to an opponent's face in red, so I think this is probably a card you might want to get into, but the 2 toughness here really doesn't mean that it's going to basically trade with anything that blocks it, so you want to be very, very careful of putting this into your deck as your 15th or 16th creature in Draft and Sealed. But that's going to do it for, let's go back to the beginning here, Active Treason, but that's going to do it for all the red cards in Core Set 2019. I really do like a lot of the red cards, so many goblins, lots of like not direct damage, but direct creature damage spells, lots of good removal. I don't think black or red is nearly as impactful or like powerful as maybe white or black at the moment, but definitely we'll be testing and doing some brewing to make sure we have a full draft guide coming up pretty soon on the channel as well. But I hope you did like this video. Like the video if you like it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment below on what you think the most powerful red card is. Maybe the dragon with the 5 damage to target opponent, or they sack a creature. That might be the most powerful dragon. And I think Sarkhan might be making its way into standard if we do have enough dragons just in the format. Haven't really looked completely yet, but I'm going to definitely try and brew a deck around that and do some matches for it for sure. But that's it for the video, guys. I love you all, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.